Okay, we're ready to start.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining the final session of the second phase of the Waves of Change camp that's organized by the Pop Movement and the Elvis Foundation. We are very excited to have Sustainability Advisor Christina Gabetti with us. Before we begin the session, a very quick introduction about Christina. Christina is an American-Italian journalist, speaker, and sustainability advisor. After a decade of entertainment reporting, motherhood brought her to investigate the impact of our lifestyles on society and the environment. It was a transformative journey. She has 4 published books on applied sustainability, and for 12 years has been hosting a weekly segment on the popular TV show. Christina, if you could pronounce it, that would be helpful for me.
Striscia la notizia.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Just give me a second. As a moderator, Christina connects experts on criticalities and solutions to the challenges of our time. She's a member of the advisory board of YCELP, teaches and consults on sustainable practices with emphasis on the UN 2030 agenda. Thank you so much once again, Christina, for joining us. We're so excited to have this session with you. I have interacted with you on many occasions before this, and I've learned so much from you. And I'm so excited to have these people here today take away from these things that I've taken away from you in the course of the last 1 or 2 years. So thank you so much once again for joining us. And with that, I hand it over to you, and you can take the session forward.
And thank you, Priyanka. Thank you, Ash and Anna. You are quite an amazing team, so dedicated, and you really restore hope deeply when I, have moments where reality seems to hit a bit hard. And I think it's really important to instill hope and provide tools to youth of all ages. So good morning what time is it there? Good day. Let's just say good day to everyone who's connected. The purpose of this session is deeply practical because I'm really motivated to fill the gap between what we know and how we live. But instead of running through a series of actions, which you're all quite aware about, we're going to address the underlying attitude, the mindset that we need to have to see opportunities. They might not be on a to-do list that you've acquired so far, but ways of being regenerative for our society, for the environment, and for the economy is a very creative journey. So it's a matter of turning that, that attention coupled with the intention and go full on to your purpose. So we've created, meaning Olivia, who's been working with me now for some years and who is connected and who will be helping us out so that we can swiftly flow from the slides to some polls that we'll be taking. Olivia and I created an alphabet of sustainability. So what are those key elements that we need to keep our attention to and that can open a vast array of possibilities? So our first poll is about, we'll ask you to take as a first thing a photograph of the QR code so you can join in on Slido. And Slido is a great tool if you aren't aware of it. I'm sure you are though. It creates a word cloud of the most prominent answers, and you'll be able to see, the relevance and what people tend to choose. Okay, so you have about 4 to 5 seconds to write as many words as come to mind, and then we'll look at them together. So the first poll is, and you can take 45 seconds for this first question. How many of the 17 SDGs of the 2030 agenda apply to oceans, as your focus is on oceans? Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds. Think large. Those are the most obvious, but if you think of daily choices, actions, um, most of what we do and use does in the end flow into the oceans. So the oceans are about much more than just the SDGs that you've indicated. I see no one's adding on. So, okay, good. Okay, that's already much better. Yeah, pretty much the oceans, and I'm sure you've already heard a lot of this information, but we know it's our biggest carbon sink. We know that, you know, rivers flow into oceans. So most of what we use then impacts the ocean. A large percentage of the world population relies on the oceans for food. We extract resources from the oceans. Okay, we'll move on. Now, second question, which SDG do you feel most engaged with? I will take the time properly this time because otherwise we'll go way long and I don't want that to happen. So 45 seconds. Fifteen more seconds. Okay, that's good. So there seems to be a strong focus on life underwater, life on land, climate action, and education. Next question. What do you most remember from COP26, which was, I'm sure you know, but the Conference of Parties held in Glasgow last month? Be bold, just put words down. Nothing is also acceptable if you don't remember anything, but state it. You might remember the demonstrations. You might remember the conversations about the complexities around climate change and keeping up to par. Okay. Okay. Okay, a few more seconds. We're going over time in case you have any other keywords. Okay. Yes, well, treaties, yes. All these things were heavily discussed, debated. Credibility is certainly a big factor. There's now articles coming out saying how many of the promises that were supposed to be enacted immediately are lagging behind. Youth inclusion is an interesting point because there was definitely an interesting representation of youth, but that's, the tip of the iceberg. So I think everyone is kind of invited to get more youth engaged because you are the future in every term. You are the voters, you are the consumers, you'll certainly be innovators, legislators, who knows? You will have an impact, so start getting your voice heard. Aligning the finance sector is more than that. I would say that they opened saying Money is not the issue. There is the money, but one needs to then create that flow where capital can actually fuel practical solutions. So I think resistance is the biggest issue. People just have a hard time giving up what is certain and making the effort to embrace the uncertain. Now, last question for now, and then we'll get into the alphabet. How many, oh no, we have two more questions. How do you connect with nature? What is your favorite way of connecting with nature? Very interesting. Okay, a few more seconds. Okay. Who will explain he came to me?
Sorry, that was hiking, but
okay.
I missed the G.
I was like, ooh, there's something interesting here that I'm not aware of. Hiking, okay. These are all great ways to connect with nature. And I'm very happy to see that spirituality is on this list because there's a big role for spirit in the time we're living in. Okay, now last question for now. How many of your peers are passionate about protecting our planet and our oceans? You can choose a lot, some. I forgot to put the timer on, so let's say you have 10, 15 more seconds. Well, we'll take it as a very good sign that none is at 0%. I like that. Good. Well, that's important. And many more will come on board for sure. Okay, now we can get into the alphabet. So Olivia will start sharing the word cloud. Give us a moment as we transition from, here we go. Okay, A. Every action counts. So A for action. What we buy matters. It affects our bodies and our oceans. Think of products to clean and care for our bodies, our things, our homes. Think of the plastic problem and the supply chains of our goods. In everything we do, we can choose business as usual, or we can experiment a different way. The 2030 Agenda. A for agenda, the first holistic roadmap that clearly indicates how we can not separate social, economic, and environmental development. We don't need to protest to be activists, but we need to put ourselves to service for a greater cause. Anthropocene, the impact of human activity has determined our era. Abundance, tap into it. Abundance is a state of nature. Take it as a starting point, not a goal. Awareness, it's essential in every aspect of our lives to be practiced with curiosity. Attitude, it makes all the difference. Have the conversations that are meaningful to you with your peers, get feedback on what works and what doesn't. Art is the best medium to cross boundaries and stretch our imagination. Algae, the greens in our seas that photosynthesize, are rich in nutrients and can be used to make many things. B, biodiversity. It's the backbone of our life. It's our biggest treasure, and it needs to thrive for us to thrive. Yet the simple equation seems to have been lost. Scientists agree that the extinction rate is hundreds or even thousands of times higher than the natural baseline. Monitoring loss of biodiversity is very complex, and it's a weak point of the 2030 agenda. The best way to engage in the protection of biodiversity is at the local level, where you live, your observation, conversations with elders who can tell you there was something growing there that is no longer, there was fish available that is no longer. Sometimes we're in our heads so much that we don't take notice of and here's another B, the beauty that we're immersed in. Seek it at least once a day. In time, it will reveal itself to you, because nature is very generous with beauty. We are so busy, another B, with doing that we forget to be. In a state of pure being, we remember who we are. So we want to honor the planetary boundaries and stretch our own beyond habit to forge new pathways. On to C. We are all members of communities, from family, which is the most challenging, to friends, neighbors, schoolmates. Communities are hubs for change. In communities, we can have an impact, getting others to share our good practices. Think of the community that you're a part of, with Ways of Change, with Herves, with all the wonderful projects that you're involved in with this wonderful group who is helping you navigate these times. Caring, it's a state of being. When we learn to take good care of ourselves, it becomes natural to care for others and for all forms of life. This reminds me of the safety instructions when we board a plane. They always say, put the oxygen mask on yourself before helping others. So we must not think that caring for ourselves is selfish. It's where it all starts. COP, Conference of Parties, 26 just finished. 27 is next year in Sharm el-Sheikh. And COP 21 was the one in Paris, probably the most memorable. Changemakers, our mission, who we are. Circular, a mentality above all, and an economy that considers waste as a resource that promotes repairing and reusing. Our current economies are mostly linear and expected to grow infinitely, which of course is impossible on a finite planet. Carbon sink is a natural system that absorbs more carbon from the atmosphere than it releases. For example, our oceans, the soil, and even plants. Coral, we've lost half the world's coral since 1950, but fortunately there are so many projects aiming to revive our reefs. Reefs are also home of the richest underwater biodiversity. On to D. We have to allow ourselves to dream the world we want. Our imagination is a powerful aid to overcome anxiety of being too small to make a difference. It's an act of courage which we want to embrace. So take a moment to dream every day, make it visual, see yourself acting in the world you want. Make it a genuine desire, not an obligation. Data, alone it's sterile. Use it to understand it, then put it into context. Dialogue, it's essential. We need to communicate how we feel and be active listeners. Diet, what we eat makes a difference for our planet and for our health. More plants, less meat, less fish, more fruit, less refined sugars, more whole grains, more awareness. On to E. Empathy, or mirror mechanism. Our brains are wired to feel with others. When we see an action performed, for example, when we put a piece of chocolate in our mouth, that same action is recorded in the person observing. It's a fascinating mechanism, and it is there to be explored in a regenerative way. Acts of kindness, acts of caring, love, respect. Knowing that people resonate with us is quite nice. Empower yourself, and you'll in turn empower others. We know what it takes, but to evolve, we need to take action. We're a tiny part of a vast ecosystem, our blue planet. Honor the abundance of life. How much energy do we need to live well? How much energy is dispersed or wasted? Think about our energy level and the amount we produce to operate our activities. Engage with your peers. We need many engaged young citizens to put pressure on administrations, legislators, corporations, business leaders, and even our neighbors. Let's remind ourselves of our original meaning of the word economy, from Greek oikos, which means home, and nomos, which means divide and share. Elders, they're wise, experienced, and have a lot to teach. You need them, they need you. F. If we don't believe, we won't succeed in overcoming our grand challenges. Faith takes many forms. So be faithful to what is meaningful to you. Fun is a big part of the game. When I began integrating sustainable solutions in my daily life, I took it as a creative exercise. I have fun recycling, reducing waste, reusing anything that can still have a purpose, saving water, keeping the oceans safe and clean. Fulfillment. It's first of all a state of mind, a state of being. And though today we relate it to material abundance, often those who have a lot of material abundance are not always the happiest. Focus, where we want to put our attention matters, and more than everything, focusing is a big challenge. Shall we call it a discipline? Embrace it. Free, what we want to be, what we want the world to be, and what we need to watch out for. The other meaning of free, because many things that seem free have an impact. Fishing nets. Did you know that they can be recycled into fabric, sunglasses, and so many other different things? G. Find what genuinely interests you. Find your genuine way of carrying it forth and expressing yourself. Authenticity travels far, and when you manifest, if you're aligning your knowledge and feeling, your personal purpose, and our collective mission, then you come across as being authentic or genuine. Growth. Think of it as a process of maturity. Think of quality, not quantity. Greenwashing, making false sustainability claims, is a threat because people think they're doing the right thing, and in reality, they're not. Learn how to detect it because it's really important. Gut, our second brain. Tuning into our gut is often where we'll find the best answers. Gap between what we know and how we live. We are all called to fill the gaps. Gratitude, practicing it throughout our days, opens us to honoring what we have instead of being obsessed with what we don't have. Goals. It's so important to have goals, meet them, and set new ones, like any good workout or diet. H. We are part of a sophisticated, interdependent system that requires a holistic mentality to be understood and restored. Once you understand it and feel it, what you learn feeds into it. The 2030 Agenda is holistic because it emphasizes how social, economic, and environmental development are inseparable. Home, our planet. Practice our sense of belonging. Human, we have much more in common than what we think. So let's communicate, unfiltered by screens. ideally. Happiness, the most noble of pursuits, a state of being. I, positive impact, what we strive for. Negative impact, what we're trying to contrast and repair. Think of Greta Thunberg or her predecessor, Severin Suzuki, who at 15 had addressed the world leaders at the climate conference in Rio in 1992. While sharing is important, favor human interaction to assess your impact. Social media can increase our reach, but it also has an environmental impact. 4% of greenhouse gases are caused by digital communication. Our awareness can help us measure the power of our impact. Inquisitive, be curious always. Innovate. Every day is an opportunity to do something differently. You are all innovators. Intelligence, honor it in all forms. Life is very intelligent. Explore it, learn about how intelligent animals and plants are. Have you seen the documentary, The Octopus, My Teacher? That's just an example of how intelligent animals can be. Also, many people have forms of intelligence that want to be recognized. So instead of judging right away when we see someone, be open, and beauty and intelligence will certainly be revealed. All forms of life are interdependent and interconnected. It's magic. Undoing the mess is a bit complicated. Indigenous. Indigenous culture is vital and harbors millennia of knowledge and traditions. Explore the ones that most fascinate you, that are closest to your heritage. J, there's an old saying, focus on the journey, not on the destination. We want to set our goals on our intentions to meet them successfully. K, how to unlock our full potential and turn the key is our main pillar of our lifelong journeys. Key is also finding the action that can unlock change. Knowledge is an essential K word. Our long-term goal, to evolve from the era of information to the era of knowledge. L. In 1972, a group of scientists and leaders founded the Club of Rome to investigate the limits of growth. A report was published, and everything we're living now was foreseen then. How can we have infinite growth on a finite planet? Our current situation is exposing our difficulty as humans to respect long-term planning and goals. Though we live in an abundant universe, we've broken nature's cycles of regeneration, and accepting our limits is our biggest passport to freedom. Dream the world you want in 30 years. Love is what we need most. Learn. Never before have humans had more access to information. Learning is a lifelong journey. Life. Embrace it. M. We live in an increasingly polarized world, and we have to practice the art of mediation, finding the middle ground between our ideas and opinions and those of others. Another relevant M is meditate. It simply means give your mind a rest. Connect to the source. Call it the universe, Mother Earth, God, or anything you believe in. Monitor improvement and weakness that deserve our attention. We might not always feel motivated, but that's okay. That's what defines those who care from those who give up. Manifest your ideas, your concerns, your intentions, your dreams, your doubts. The world needs you. N. Nature, every element, earth, air, fire, water, ether, are within and around us in a constant dynamic of exchange. Schools in New Delhi were closed for a few weeks due to a spike in air pollution. Administrations urgently need to address long-term solutions to reduce air pollution, which in turn affects the oceans. And that refers to nature because the law of interconnectedness is essential. And it's important that we always keep alive the practice of connecting the dots. Nature, of course, a world to discover and understand. It's also what we're part of. Oh, we have one planet for now. If you could live on Mars, would you? I kind of find this planet quite special. Oceans are our biggest climate regulators, but because they belong to all of us, they're not territorial except for a few miles away from coastlines, and we trash them and overexploit them. Our daily choices have an impact on the oceans. This is the UNESCO decade of ocean science. We have a lot to learn. Oxygen. Did you know that most of the oxygen we are breathing today was created by the oceans and the phytoplankton that live in them? Opportunities. Seek and create them. P. People, planet, prosperity, a trio that cannot be separated. Passion, what drives our efforts, gives power to our actions. Find your passion, make it your engine. Present, it's both a gift and a state of mind. The biggest present to yourselves is to be fully present in every moment. When we're open and aware, many unexpected opportunities arise. Progress, moving forward on our trajectories. Progress is not linear. Allow yourselves to make mistakes. They always will teach us something. Protection, marine protection areas are essential. NGOs are advocating to protect 30% of our planet by 2030, including our oceans. Q, we're inundated by information. It can be numbing. We need to ask the right questions. We live in complex times, yet we often settle for the easy answer. Get into the habit of taking notes of a question or two every day. Use those questions to probe under the surface. Quality, to prefer always over quantity, from what we eat to what we use. R, finding the right questions requires reflection. Reflecting can bring greater balance. Relate to our outer and inner worlds, to others and to nature. Relationships are our biggest opportunities and our biggest challenges. We need many sources of information, and knowing how to do good research and finding trusted sources is a necessary art. Resilience, a term that comes from the textile industry, the quality of bouncing back to the original form without losing it, adapting to change. It's a quality we all need in these uncertain times. Resistance is also another important thing, though. We have to discern when to adapt and when to resist. Roadmap is personal and collective. It's what we need to embark on our journeys. Regenerative, what we want to be in every possible way. Responsible, driving our choices today and tomorrow. Responsible choices will always bear their fruits. S, solidarity for those who are less fortunate. Get involved. Show someone near or far that you care. Systemic change means that everyone needs to be part of this change and coordinate with others, from governments to NGOs, businesses, and citizens. Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. They're just words or acronyms, though, without our active involvement. They become powerful when we get involved. Scarcity. We live in a world of abundance, but the pressure we have put on our ecosystems have generated scarcity of natural resources. In a systemic mindset, what we abuse of creates scarcity elsewhere. Scale. What we need to reach a turning point. We obviously are talking about a positive turning point, positive change. So we want to scale our good actions. Spaceship. Our planet is like a spaceship. It's finite in terms of resources, but it's infinite in terms of energy. So start reflecting on the 10 things that you would like to bring into space. That's a good way to practice it, the spaceship mentality. Seafarers, people who live at sea, know what is most needed. Talk to them, ask questions. Sunscreens, many chemical filters which damage coral and fish, are unfortunately in common use. They're in most of the sunscreens that we can buy. And even a small quantity can have a big harm. So remember, what we use when enjoying the oceans can affect it. T, together we can. Join like-minded people, explore the power of critical mass. Everything is in a state of constant transformation. Think of what happens every instant in our bodies. Oxygen nourishes our blood. Millions of microbes break down nutrients in our gut and deliver those nutrients where they're needed. Let's mind the laws of nature and set off on every new day, invoking the power of transformation. Transition, the era we're in, ecological, technological, our journey from where we are to where we want to go. You, understanding at every level of our being. V, we're all vulnerable, but in today's society, we're taught to be strong, invincible. It's quite the contrary. When we learn to manifest our vulnerabilities, we are open to important communication and deep understanding with others. Vulnerability is the primary key to collaboration. When we learn to ask for help, we're actually being much more humble than when we expect others to understand that we need help. W, witnessing the effort of change makers and those who struggle fuels our motivation to take part in the regenerative movement. Witnessing what harms nature and the oceans awakes our commitment to protect. Waves of the change we want and the waves we don't want. Think of sea levels and the threats to coastal cities. X, xenobiotic, a chemical or substance that is foreign to an organism or a biological system. Too many end up in our oceans. We use so many substances in our daily lives, from chemicals to clean our clothes, our bodies. We have to really familiarize with them if we want to avoid them. Why? 50% of the global population is under 30, so youth. You are a powerhouse, and us adults apologize for the mess we're in. With our experience and your vision, we shall overcome. Youth for Climate. If you're not aware of the fact that 400 youth gathered in Milan before COP26 in Glasgow, go read their manifesto. It's very interesting, and it's so much more holistic than the documents that adults produced. Z, zero emissions. The goal for 2050, our target every day, because we need to take baby steps to get there. And we need to demand that industries and governments create infrastructure and regulations to accelerate our transition towards zero emissions. So the journey is circular, and we'll now go back to A, actions. If you want a stimulus on that front and you want to be in good company, download the app Act Now that was adopted by the United Nations for the global campaign, and it was designed by a group of young Italians. It's improving as we go along, but it's definitely a good way to navigate a sustainable daily, to navigate sustainable daily habits, to incorporate them. It's also, as we mentioned, the UNESCO Decade of Ocean Science. It's definitely generous with resources that are helpful for all of you. Now we'll go to another quick poll. Should we go directly to the...
Yep, I just need 1 second to set it up.
Yeah. Take a moment. And meanwhile, we can also get a moment of feedback. Is this making sense for everyone? Are you rhyming with it? Are you motivated to create your own word cloud? Add as many that come to mind. Post them, think of creative ways to make your word clouds and then set them as reminders around your room, on your phone, on your desktop. Okay, there will of course be time to interact. Let's just finish with this round of polls and then we'll open it up to all of you. Okay, so the first question is, and again, you can take about 30-45 seconds. You need to pick up this QR code. It's different from the previous one. And it'll put you on to this next round of questions. Great. Okay, so first question is, has everyone joined? Or raise your hand if you haven't. Everyone's joined. Okay, so we can go to the first question. The biggest carbon sink is oceans, atmosphere, land, or plants? Good. So most of you got it right. I had kind of given it away before, but wonderful. Okay. So the next question is, what percentage of oxygen in our atmosphere is produced by the oceans? You can dare, no worries. Questions like these are the reason that the UN has, really put a lot of UNESCO through UNESCO has put a lot of energy into the decade of oceans, because there's so many key facts that just slip our minds. Great. Well, you know what? I think the correct answer is 50 to 80, but it could very well, be 75 to 90. I mean, I can see how it's a 50-50 answer, but the correct answer is 50 to 80. Okay, last question. As I mentioned before, our planet is like a spaceship. There's interesting workshops to develop the so-called spaceship mentality. So write as many, oh no, wait, sorry. I was going ahead to the following question, sorry. Write as many things that come to mind that pollute the oceans. Okay, some we mentioned, some we didn't. Okay, we mentioned something earlier in passing. Yeah. We also mentioned another thing. Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds. Okay. Yes. Okay. Detergents. All forms of detergents really pollute the oceans. So, and also microfibers. Remember how there's so much talk about microplastics in the ocean? Well, they come from the fabrics that our clothes are made of. There's solutions to that, but it is a problem. Okay, now the last question. Make a list of 5 to 10 things that you can't live without. And if you were to load a spaceship tomorrow and you were told you can bring your 5 to 10 essential things, what would they be? I'll give you a bit more time. Be creative and be honest also. Oh. Okay, another 20 seconds. You think that what you're taking is going to, provide you with everything you need. Think of, some things can be shared, but, yeah, food and water are important. Air, I think, would be produced by your spaceship. And food, there's people who are now bringing tomatoes and basil onto, in little pods. Okay, so I'll stop it here. But it's a fun exercise. Think of things that you'd like to, that you would really need to have if you were to load a spaceship tomorrow. Okay, now we can open it up to questions, observations, anything that comes to mind, any form of feedback.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christina. If any of the participants have any questions that they would like to ask either live or on the chat, we will be happy to send them, to hand them over to Christina so she may answer them. And while they start, I think I really like the word clouds with each letter. Now I want to think of that exercise in Spanish, like how we can adapt it. I think it's such a great way to really think about how so many things are related to sustainability and the environment, right? Because there's so many words per letter of it.
Exactly. And recently I did spend many years really, and I still do that in some circles, but focusing on the actions that we need to be taking. But I think that we want to really foster independent thinking and acting. So it's the mindset that then will lead you onto that journey. So I'm glad you like it. It's to be played with. It's a fun. I mean, we're having fun with it, Olivia and I, and it works in different contexts. It works with different people. It works in different circles.
Completely, I agree. So here Ricardo says, I don't have questions so far, but I would like to know more about Christina's vision of teamwork when it comes to climate action.
Okay, well, being channels of knowledge, take all these, because your focus is really on oceans, do keep in mind that the tools that UNESCO shares are really powerful. So fun facts about the oceans. I'm sure that if you run that question about, how much, what the biggest carbon sink is and how much oxygen do our oceans produce, I think most people will be unaware. Get them to relate to simple actions. The sunscreen is a big problem, and some manufacturers, I even fell into a trap last summer. I bought sunscreen and it said ocean safe, and I went to Olivia and I was like, I'm so happy I found my ocean. And she's like, look, it's actually not ocean safe, because she had downloaded an app, which I also have now, that goes through the ingredients, and it will immediately signal whether these ingredients are ocean safe or not. And certainly diet. I was complaining to Olivia because I moderated a big summit in Trieste, which is a beautiful coastal city in Italy. And, after the end of, very intense day with lots of data, we go to a restaurant, and the people next to me who were, influential people, ordered a huge plateau of raw fish. And I which of course I didn't eat, but it really upset me, because most of that fish was not local, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So learning about the impact of our diets is really important. And gratitude, practicing gratitude is difficult, especially in the times we're living in, because we can really see many things that we're not too grateful for. But that puts us in a mentality of contrast and of rejection, and it creates a barrier. While gratitude will, if you get into the habit, and that then can bring us into spirituality. In fact, I remember I mentioned at the beginning, but I really, at the beginning, meaning one of the very first times we met, at the beginning, at the onset of this journey, certainly practicing yoga had an important role. So, I mean, it's embedded in your wonderful culture. So that ties me into get people to engage with, the underlining power and strength and richness of your culture, and to elders. I could go on for hours, but I mean, I would say that, these are all good starting points. And I think enthusiasm is contagious. So if you can find a way to make it pop and fun and sexy, and of course, that's what you do a lot with Ash, and all these elements are there. So just be bold and kind.
Thank you so much, Christina. I think those recommendations are so great, because I think so many times when someone asks this question, the answer is more focused on very specific actions they can take. But it's so important to also focus on the attitudes we need to have in order to have effective action and collaborative action, right? Like you said, gratitude and teamwork, it's so important.
Though I will add one element. I think that when it comes to really combating climate change, it's really important to align policies with agendas. And I think that there needs to be a lot of pressure put on legislators. I was just reading an article the other day on how, promises made at COP are actually not being delivered, when I mentioned when we began this conversation. So I think that keeping people accountable is really important. And I don't know whether you have use of the platforms that we use here a lot, that are platforms for petitions, and then the petitions can lead to maybe an action towards legislators and government, both local and national. But launch petitions. Avaz is the best platform that I know. Change.org is also good, but Avaz has an international scope that is great. And then, protest. I mean, if you go back to thinking what Greta Thunberg achieved in a very short period of time, I think that underlines that action and being physically engaged does bring attention to these topics. But climate change, and the last thing is to really explore interconnectedness, because that seems to, as I mentioned, the Youth for Climate. Yeah, that's one thing I would really invite everyone to do, is read the Youth for Climate Manifesto if you haven't done so yet, because it is so holistic. It really is proof that that young people are more, they understand the interconnection of both problems and solutions so much more than adults do.
Thank you so much. I've written it down so I make sure I don't forget to read the Youth for Climate Manifesto. I don't know if anyone else would like to ask a question, either on the chat or in person. Go ahead, Ricardo. Oh, and we also have a comment here from Imrana, who we have here, Imrana Yerima. Awareness is what is needed in my community, but people are not willing to listen. We have all started to see the effect on climate change, but people don't see it as something. That's so important.
Yeah, well, getting people to listen is challenging. And we tend to get angry when people don't listen. But I've experimented in some occasions with great success that being kind, especially if someone is like, it's someone is creating opposition, kindness confuses someone who is kind of, annoying you. And so that opens a window of attention. So use creative ways to get people's attention. Try and resist that immediate impulse of getting angry, and try to spell things out kindly. That's my best advice, because we do also need to be angry. But when we're in a conversation, anger shuts down any kind of bridge. So you can be angry in manifestations when you take the streets with thousands of people, or when you demand action. But if it's a matter of bringing on board, peers, I think using creative ways to overcome their provocations is better, and stirring their awareness in a way that they might not, as I said, expect.
That's so great. Thank you so much. And and here's Ricardo says here, if you ever get the chance to be the leader of your country, imagining, which first steps would you take to tackle ocean pollution, and in what order? This is such an interesting question. I like it, Ricardo. Thank you for your question.
I would make it mandatory that in all the coastal areas and in all the marinas, and whenever someone goes to sea or by the sea, they only use ocean safe products. There's no big production. There should be, a line or two at least of products that are ocean safe, that are seriously ocean safe. I would demand that as a first thing. I would demand that people don't leave their garbage on the beaches, and that they get heavily fined if they do that. And I would probably put a cap, and that goes for meat too, on, I don't know how one would regulate that, on the amount of animal protein one eats. Considering that if we have a choice, we're lucky people. Some countries have no choice. In fact, I think it's about at least almost 40% of the world population that does not have a choice but to eat fish. So, the way we over exploit the ocean's riches has to stop. And I don't think that that fish farms are the solution unless we really jump into fish farms that are acceptable. Most of the fish farms create more harm than benefit. So, and then I would connect with motivated people around the world to spread the importance of global action, just because, as we said at the beginning, the amount of territorial responsibility is just a few miles off the coast, and then we're in no man's land or everyone's land.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. I agree with what Ricardo was putting here in the chat, that it's very interesting what you say, that not all have choices, but it's important to appreciate those choices we do have and take advantage to really take right decisions on the choices we do have, right? So I think that's so important, and I really appreciate what you've shared with us. I would like to ask if anyone else would like to ask a final question. I don't know if either Priyanka, Andres, anyone who would like to open their mic and ask a question is welcome to do so.
More than question, I would just like to thank Christina. I think the session was so informative and interactive, and just the flow of it. I think it's such a brilliant idea to go to the ABCD of sustainability, and thank you so much for bringing that to us. I was also wondering if Dr. Ash had any final comments to add before we close the session.
Thank you. I do want to convey my gratitude as well to Christina, not just for her absolutely precious time, but her words and her wisdom and the values that you've shared. I think, Christina, I truly felt, inspired. I think it's really important to be practical, like you described, in terms of the action that we need to take and to listen, but listen and act. But I think you also shared a very important thing, which is, we've deviated, or I take this away from, the wonderful wisdom and values you shared, which is that we deviated from, the path of sustainability and protecting our planet and all its beautiful species that we're so blessed to share the planet with, because of our values. And so it's so important to just be in touch with, the importance of caring and listening and being kind and empathetic and compassionate. And I think you shared I think there's just so much richness in everything that you've so generously shared with us here today, giving us an opportunity to go away and think about it and process it and practice it. And needless to say, I think you're the most brilliant teacher. I mean, it's wonderful how you've engaged us and taken us on this journey during the course of an hour. So thank you for the magic, and thank you for your beautiful heart. And we wish to convey our gratitude. And I want to thank Priyanka, Anna, Imrana, Hermano Ricardo, Andres, and Olivia, so much for just being here, participating, sharing. And I know that, this coming together, and I hope we'll have many, many more, is what will make the difference. And like you said at the start, we can do it. We have the resources, we have the experience, and we have the positivity to make it happen. So I think all the essential ingredients are there. I pray for many more opportunities for us to be together and continue on the right and to get on the right path and make it happen. So I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of the family, and to thank you for being a precious part of the family. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Ash. It's really, it's an honor for me. You know, it's a wonderful sharing experience and learning, and I'm really in deep admiration for all the energy and vision and caring and love and passion that you put into these journeys. And I can only see wonderful things coming from all this stimulus, and especially the spirit that animates it. So I'm sharing a heart with you too. I don't know how do I do that?
Thank you.
Okay.
And from our hearts to yours, thank you so much, really. And it's inspiring to see all the leadership and you know, positive energy. And thank you for sort of bringing us in touch, putting us in touch with it. And you know, you exemplify all of it. So thank you.
Thank you all, and we will be in touch.
Yes.
Great.
Before we
Yeah.
close, sorry, Christina, if some of y'all can switch on your camera, we would love to just have a quick grab of the session as well, if it's possible. Thank you so much, Dr. Ash.
Yeah, I'm just gonna move the camera. Yeah, all right, I'll hold it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anna, is it possible for you to take it? Yeah, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, wait, okay, there we go. Ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Christina and Olivia. We'll keep troubling you for many more such sessions and interactions in all of our upcoming programs. So thank you so much, Olivia, as well, for all the behind the scene handling. It's
Happy to.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you,
Happy
Ricardo.
to. We're on
Absolutely
board. So
amazing.
whenever you know, we can, I mean, I think we've found the dynamic. So here when wanted, needed, and always in spirit.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
have
you
a
so
great
much.
day.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Gift and
Imrana.
collective.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andres.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Have
Love.
a good day.
Yes.
Take care.
Love and
Bye.
happy
Bye.
holidays, and stay happy and healthy. I think that, you know, this is what we want for all of you. And thank you so much. Enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you
For
soon.
all of you, absolutely. Apresto, as they say on our side.